All right. Hi, everybody. So, I was going to do this a couple different ways because I know I've got the observation survey group here. I think, would you guys like to go soon? I should have asked this before break so you could prepare. Would you like to get it out of the way? Tamika says, I would. Is that what did I read lips? Did I do that? Okay. Okay. So why don't you guys, okay. Is it okay with the group?
Yes, if they want to.
Who else is in your group?
Yeah, it's okay with me.
Okay. Carried. All right.
Yeah, we can go.
All right. Well, while you guys, do you have one person that's pulling up the thing and is going to share the screen? Do you know how to do this? Yeah, you got this all figured out. All righty. All right. Go ahead and start. And so everybody, this is going to be the observation survey. They won't go into running records because obviously we do that, but it's, it'll be a part of that. They won't have to go into too much about running records, I should say. They probably will go into it a little, but this is a good place to kind of get a grip on this. That seems like looking at something like, what's going on here? Does anybody need any help? I'll tell you what, while you guys are organizing that, why don't I talk a little bit about phonics, phonemic awareness, and phonological awareness, and define those for now. And so we can, because it's a great lead-in to this, because the observation survey is a place where certainly phonics, phonemic awareness, and phonological awareness occur, just as in the PALS, but it's a good time to start that, looking at those.
Do we just hit share?
Yes.
Because I have it up on our screen, or on my screen.
Oh,
so
you do?
Share button? Is that what
yes. So go ahead and push that green share button.
Which one do I pick? Screen or presentation?
It depends on if you want to run the slide presentation, you want to say push screen because it won't show the pop-up.
Do you see it?
Yep. We sure do. So now you can show whatever you want.
Later, ready?
Yeah.
Do you want me to make it full, or is this?
This is fine.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
How do I haven't done this in a while, so how do I do
hit the arrow. The right arrow will advance the screen.
Just do it this way?
Yeah, you can just click on each one, I think, too.
Okay. I don't know how to do that little, how do you preview it?
Oh,
You go to, if you go to view,
View. Okay.
should be from, oh, but this is view slideshow. I'm sorry. But yeah, from beginning. That should work.
Okay, there we go.
Take it away. I'm putting myself on mute.
All right. So actually, can you click to the
Yep,
the next
working on it.
And I'm sorry, I had mine all ready to go, and then I logged out of this account to log into my work account, and I couldn't get it to go back to this presentation. It wouldn't log in. But anyway, so the observation survey was created by Mari Clay in New Zealand, and she started out as a teacher working with young children, and now that I'm going to say this, I think this is right. I believe that she actually started developing this, I want to say in the 60s, as part of her dissertation. And it was designed to be used with students in kindergarten through third grade. Although it works the best, she felt, with students who had about 1 year of school. It's sort of labor intensive because it is given one-on-one to students. There are 6 different tasks that they do, and the evaluator's job is not just to sort of assess their actual performance, but to be observing, well, running records is part of it. So just like that, looking at all of the behaviors and things that are going on as they're trying to do these tasks. And it's sort of a unique assessment in that the purpose of it is to guide your teaching sort of in the moment. We do a lot of assessments where we're trying to find out at the end, what did they learn? So, okay, it's the end of 2nd grade. Did they learn what they were supposed to learn in 2nd grade? And if they didn't, it's too bad because now 2nd grade is over. Or we use assessments to try to put students in groups. So we're having them do these tasks individually, but then we're looking at them and trying to extrapolate to something larger. And this is very different because it is, if I do this observational survey with a child today, I can use that information to guide my teaching of them tomorrow. So it's very unusual in that way. Did we lose the?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I don't know why it keeps flipping off. That's weird.
So this screen here is the different observation tasks that the children do. So they're doing concepts of print, letter identification, word reading, writing vocabulary, hearing and recording sounds and words, and then running records.
So as they mentioned, concepts of print is one of the observation tasks that is assessed for early childhood literacy. And these are, in general, what is being assessed. If the child recognizes the front of the book, that recognizes that print is what tells the story and not the picture, recognizes that letters and clusters of letters are called book words, recognizes the first and last letters in words, upper and lowercase letters that are used in the text, recognize how they are used, and that spaces are there for a reason, and that there are different punctuation marks that have different meanings. And these are 2 examples of what Marie Clay has used traditionally to do her assessments. One is called sand and the other one is called stones. Again, some concepts of print that are assessed are if a child recognizes the cover of a book, if a child is able to recognize that the print carries the message, if the child recognizes that the direction that a book is supposed to be read in from left to right, if a child is able to recognize what a word is. Is it timing? Like, is it gonna just go on its own?
I don't think it's timed.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything, so I'm moving it now. I just started hearing you.
Oh, okay.
You're
And
breaking
also,
up.
oh, I know, it's my internet service is in and out today. Also, something else that is assessed for concept about print is the first and last part of a story. If the child recognizes that, they will demonstrate it by pointing to the beginning of the story and the end, or the beginning of a line and the end. To recognize if a child recognizes when a story or a book is inverted, they will point to the bottom of the page when you ask them what the top of the page is when the book is inverted. Also, when the picture is upside down. And also, the child will recognize that you are reading the text backwards if you're not reading it in sequence. Also, if you read the words that aren't in sequence, they're also supposed. Also, that's a concept about print that she recognized or will be assessed by the instructor.
And I'd like to do a little clarification on that.
Okay.
Just very specifically, the book is like, just because people that don't see the books are like trick books. They have upside down pictures, they have upside down words, or inverted, like, you know, like she was saying, and mixed up words, misspelled words, all sorts of stuff. And so the teacher reads it as if, you know, the correct way. And so that the student can't just hear it and say, and use their structure knowledge to say, wait, you can't say the in. You can't, you know, it's not the in hole, I think is one of the things. It's in the hole, you know. So I think that was in sand. And then, so they've got, the student has to look at the print and understand that the print doesn't match with what the teacher's saying. So it's kind of, I always call it a trick book to the kids. I'm like, watch out, there's tricks in this book. But anyway, so that's just in case, you know.
Thank you for clarifying that. That was a little hard for me to explain, but also a concept about print that is assessed is punctuation, whether or not a child will recognize punctuation such as a period, a comma, and quotation marks, and what the meaning of those punctuations are. Another concept of print that is assessed is whether or not the child can identify an uppercase letter. After you point to it, then after you point to an uppercase letter, then you can ask the child to point to one. And also that's the case for lowercase letters. And then also for the child to be able to recognize reversible words such as was or no, which can be read either way. The child also should be able to recognize a letter in the text and a word by pointing to them. The child should be able to recognize the first and last letter of a word, and then what a capital letter is.
I'm coming.
That's okay. So this is how the scores are interpreted. They can be learned during the first years of school. The concepts about print are evaluative observations that can be useful as a diagnostic tool. The teacher can examine the child's performance and teach the unknown concepts. Most of the concepts about print will tell you what the child is attending to. The child will generally know certain concepts at certain ages, and the concept about print can be viewed as an indicator of a child's exposure to early literacy. So those are some of the ways the scores can be used. So, this is letter identification. Okay, so for letter identification, you test all of the letters. We be sure to put them in random order, and it will help you to recognize how the child is recognizing the letter with the scoring by marking A for an alphabetic response if they know the actual letter name, S if they know the sound and not their letter name, W if they, for a word beginning similarly, if they say a word that begins similar to that letter. So that's how you will score letter identification. In interpreting those scores, you can compare your students' test scores with the normalized state-9 test score for the age group. An individual child's progress can be compared across various tests which have different ranges of scores. And teaching should be aimed at how the child distinguishes letters on any basis that works, not necessarily letter, sound, or recognition. I thought that that was a really important point, that the teaching should be aimed at how the child distinguishes the letters.
Another task is word reading. It was created in New Zealand off the Ready to Read series that the children were using. They took 45 of the most frequently used words in their series and made 3 lists with 15 words each. The assessment helps determine if this child is building a personal resource of their vocabulary, gives a sample of the reader's competency while reading the words individually or in isolation. And it's the teacher's able to compare the student's score with other children of the same age. This is a sample of the 3 lists. This is the New Zealand word reading list. It takes about 2 minutes to administer. You start with asking with one of the lists, A, B, or C, and point to each. Start with the practice word and ask them if what this word is, and continue going on. If they don't respond, then you continue to the next one. And as far as scoring, it's similar to running records. So you place a check next to the words that they get right. If they get it incorrect, you put what they say. And then if they do self-correct, they can use the SC symbol again, and it's still counted as correct. And then you calculate them all up together out of how many they have. And in our book, there's a Stay9 score chart that you can go off of based off of their age. From Clay's word reading with the New Zealand series, other reading assessments have been created. The ones that were familiar to me that from the United States were the Ohio word test, and that was started in 1987. And that used our high frequency words from the Dolch word list. And so that one has 3 lists, but there's 20 words each. And then the Duncan word list is more recent, and that's 2 lists with 23 words. And then reading.
So the writing vocabulary task was really interesting to me. You are looking at how many words the child knows that they're able to write, and we always think of, or it's common to think that children, that they first learn how to read, and then they take what they know about that and they use that to learn how to write. But actually, it's often kind of the opposite, and it's very common for children to be pretending to write before they're able to read, and just learning how that print works. And I think back to my own kids, and I even remember myself, pretending to write, making little caret marks that were my letters, or big loops, and then I was writing in cursive. So it's those writing skills that can kind of predict the reading skills to a degree. So in the writing vocabulary task, what you're looking at are what features of print do children understand? Do they know their letters? Do they understand that those letters have to come in a particular order, that we're writing from left to right, and we're start at the top of the page and work to the bottom of the page? And can they distinguish between all of those different symbols? So even in a child who wouldn't necessarily be expected to read yet, a poor writing vocabulary can be an indication that there are going to be some problems that are going to need to be addressed. A limitation of this, though, is that once a child can write too many words, it isn't really useful. Once a child can successfully write 50 words, the test isn't really going to tell you very much about their abilities. So this is a sample of a test that a child did, and you basically give the child a blank piece of paper and tell them that you just want to see how many words they know how to write, and you start with, can you write your name? And once they've written their name, you just keep going with them for about 10 minutes or until they've written all the words that they know. And you can prompt them as much as you need to. Some kids will just start writing and have words that they can think of, and some kids are stuck, and it isn't that they don't know how to write them, but they just can't think. So you suggest words that they might know. So, you know, start with short words. Well, can you write is? How about to? How about be? And if they kind of exhaust one category of words, you can you know, kind of shift their attention to another category. How about animals? Do you know how to write any animal? How about cat? And you can keep prompting them that way until you feel that they've exhausted that they're going to be able to write. So the scoring, every word that they're able to spell correctly gets 1 point. It is okay to have reversals in letters as long as reversing it doesn't change it to a different letter. So if they try to write a D and they actually write a B, that does not count. But other reversals would be okay. And we're not worried about capitals or lowercase at this point. So those are all acceptable. Once you have scored it, then you can use the stay nines here to try to get a rough idea of where they're at. The next task is called hearing and recording sounds and words. And basically it's trying to see how well that child understands the link between the sounds that they hear and the letters that make those sounds. And Marie Clay talks about 4 really complex things that kids need to learn to do in order to understand reading and print and how that works. They have to be able to even hear those sounds within the words. I know one of my daughters had frequent ear infections as an infant, and that really affected her ability to read and to write as she got older. Kids have to learn to discriminate between this huge number of symbols that we have. They have to learn how that sound is linked to that symbol, and then once they get that, all of a sudden they have to figure out, wait a minute, there are actually lots of different symbols that could be that sound. So how do I know when that sound is an S and when it's a C, or when it's, you know, a different letter? So it's a lot of really complex things that they have to learn, and that's what this test is looking at. So the task itself is fairly simple. The teacher tells the child, you know, I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to have you write it down. And the story is just 2 sentences long. And you read the story the first time just in a normal, fluent way. And then the second time, you read it to the child very slowly, word by word, so that they can write it down. If they struggle with a word, you can prompt them, what sound do you hear? And, you know, if they can get one sound, you can ask, well, that's good. What's the next sound that you can hear? And if they can't come up with another sound, then you just would say, that's okay. How about the next word? And let them move on. So these are the sentences here, the stories. So you have 5 different choices. And the reason that you have choices is so that you can repeat this test over time. Because maybe I want to know how they're doing today, but then in 2 months I want to check again, and I want to give them a different story that they haven't been exposed to before. And then to score this, each of those 2-sentence stories is scored out of 37. And you can see there, this is just for the first 2 stories, what you're looking for. You are scoring 1 point for each phoneme that they record correctly. So you can see that not everything on there has a number, like the silent E's don't count. It doesn't matter if they leave the silent E off because we were looking for that vowel sound. There are some letters like it starts I have, and then it has I again, it only counts one time. So scoring is a little bit funky, but you just use the key to figure it out. If they are adding additional letters, it doesn't affect the score. That doesn't matter. They are also allowed to substitute letters as long as the letter they substitute makes the same sound as what is actually in the correct spelling. So the word school, if they spelled it with an SK instead of SCH, you would count that as correct because that K makes that same sound. If the child writes a word in all the correct letters, but they're in the wrong order, you score correct for each of the letters, and then you just take 1 point off for the word.
And then the last task is running records. I won't go much into it, but Marie Clay had said, the prime purpose of running records is to understand more about how children are using what they know to get the message of the text, or words what reading processes they are using, which I thought was, I liked it. So she pointed out 3 reasons for running records: to guide teaching, which we've talked about, to assess the difficulty of books, and to capture progress, whether it's I can't think now. Capturing the child's progress over the year, or you can compare other readers to other readers. And then other teachers might want to take a look at the running records as well from year to year. As far as the tasks we know what we need to do, Marie Clay said that it's very important that you sit down with a blank sheet of paper. As far as myself, I like the words still. I'm still learning, but it's something that needs to be practiced often so that it becomes more comfortable, so that you can absorb other things that are going on while you're reading. So we know easy, instructional, difficult, and then other observations to make during the assessment is to watch the child's hands, eyes, what they're doing, any comments the child makes, how they move across the print, and then any other comments that they make, such as if they're working out loud, they're talking to themselves. I know I watched the little girl that I did running records with, and she's so quiet and she just stares at it, but every once in a while you can see her lips moving, trying to sound out the word or work it out in her head. This is just an example of the running record sheet, Marie Clay, for the running record that we would have to use. As you can see, the words are blank at the bottom, and then just some codes. I like to have my cheat sheets still available. Still learning. This is the conversion table. I know I have to have that available too. And then analyzing records. From myself, that's the hardest part. So we talked about it before, meaning I just think of is the picture, is she looking at the picture? What would it, does it fit? Does it make sense? Like if they use alligator versus crocodile, or gator, or happy instead of glad, are my examples. For structure, would it sound right if they say it that way? For like, instead they say mines for me, or jumps instead of jumped. Visual, I think of it as, does it look like the word in the text? Like for my example, I have even or every, or like and look was often, when I was reading with my student, was one that was commonly mistaken. This is
it's the summary sheet after you.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't remember this.
After you've done all of the assessments,
Yeah.
all together, so you have all your information in one place to look at, to try to get a picture of where this child is at. And you just kind of ask yourself, after you look at this, at the level of text as a whole, words and letters, what strategies is the child using that are working? What strategies are they trying that are causing problems and it's not helping them? And then just in general, how would you summarize where this child is at? What can you say about their strengths and their weaknesses and where you need to go with your teaching?
And then as far as strengths, we just said that it provides several dimensions. So it allows the teacher to provide one-on-one instruction based for where the student is versus where the curriculum is. And then another strength would be it's been tested and it's reliable and valid, the score or the testing. And then our weaknesses, it's very time consuming, and then we also said that it needs common practice for all. So we have to make sure that we know how to do the assessments well. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to analyze it and use it to our fullest ability, I guess, to benefit the child.
It probably won't be valid or reliable anymore.
Right. So that's it.
Very nice, guys. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. That was great. That was great. Are there any questions? Comments? Hello, everybody. No? I've got a couple. I just was going to say, just note how she continued using that running record shorthand through a lot of her assessment. She kind of continues with that. You'll note that reading specialists often do that too. So the stuff you're learning for the shorthand and running records is, it'll pop up a lot. And one other thing was, two other things. When Beth was talking about the writing vocabulary or not the writing vocabulary, the dictation, when you were talking about how basically acceptable approximations were considered correct. So if they spelled cat, K-A-T instead of C-A-T, that would be correct in this case. And I wanted to note that that's embedded spelling. And if just in case you hadn't run across that, the name for that in the biz is invented spelling. And it is an important stage here at the beginning for learning how to sound out and to look through words and things like that. So just, a little pop-up there. Invented spelling. Also, I'm so glad you guys mentioned that running records are valid and reliable and are a progress monitoring tool, as well as the rest of these things. Not a lot of districts use the observation survey, but it is an option if they wanted to use that for progress monitoring. I think the reason they don't is because of the weaknesses. Because certainly it's a legitimate kind of thing, but it's really hard to keep your staff trained in it. It's not a simple test. Or set of tests, I should say. So, but it would be a legitimate possibility for that if you ever so wanted. So anyway, and where it's valid mostly is in reading programs. Valid means that the test tests what is being taught. And so the assumption there is that this is what the teachers are teaching. That's not always the case, as we know, so it would have to align with whatever the teacher's doing for it to be valid. And that kind of, you never know. But because Mari Clay tested this and with her program, it definitely tested what they taught. So it is certainly valid for people who are going through a K2 reading recovery program. But whether it's valid for a student who may be going through direct instruction, a very different approach to reading, it might not be that the students might not recognize all of the tasks that are taught there. So So with validity, it really does depend on the context. So thank you guys so much. That was great. You do that so much faster than I do. Oh, and another thing, with dictation, that's one of my favorite assessments. By the way, along with running records, dictation, I think, tells you so much. So it floors me how dictation combines a lot of pieces. And what the student has to do in dictation is, like they hear the words and in context. So it's got connected text, and that's important. That can support some kids. So it's not isolated words. And then they hear the word, then they have to break it into pieces. And then they have to, in sequence, find a reasonable, they have to hear the separate sounds. They have to find reasonable written approximations of each one, and then they have to write them in order. So there's a whole bunch of places where a student could trip
a lot smaller than mine.
And you can, I don't know, you can find a lot in there. That's again a little
Black. That's why.
So thank you. And
Trying to figure out which movie I started watching.
all right. Oh, Danielle, I think we're.
So I have to.
Oh, I can mute you. There we go. I can help. So, while we're talking about that, I mean, as I said, this is really, really used in K2, especially first grade testing. The Reading Recovery Program aims at finding students in first grade that are struggling before they go too far. And so that these are aimed at first grade, but you're going to see a lot of these kind of assessments here and there. So things like maybe not the dictation, well, the concepts about print we've heard about in PALS. And of course, we're going to hear about the sight words as well next week. So there are certain pieces that will go through all, and there are lots of sight word lists out there if you ever need them. So there's pieces to PALS and this and the next week's batteries that you can use anytime. With that said, you're all focusing on one testing battery, but I've also said that you have to choose three assessment types, tools that aren't in your battery. So if you were interested, if you heard about dictation, for example, you might say, hey, maybe I want to try dictation with my student. That might answer some questions that I have about my student. I'd like to find out what they're doing with that. Or, I'd like to use, a word list. Well, actually, yeah. I think they all, with my PAL student, we don't have a word list. So there we go, with the beginning of PAL. So I don't know. So as you're hearing about all these things, start grabbing onto ones you think might be useful with your students. I think part of what we're trying to do here is become a critical consumer of reading assessments. And so you don't have to take a testing battery whole hog as a reading teacher. If you're trying to figure out what's going on with a student, you should be able to kind of pick and choose ones that are going to answer the questions that you have about that student. So eventually you can kind of create your own. And it can be the Hannah Rice assessment of reading difficulty, So anywho, let's take 5, and when we come back, we will talk a little phonemic awareness.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Are we going to have access to these slideshows for like all the information?
That is a great question. And
If
I
it's
have to
possible.
figure out how to put a yes. Why don't
Okay.
we have all this? If you guys could you put your slideshows up on Canvas? During this 5-minute break, I'm going to try to figure out how we do that on Canvas. I know how we do that on D2L. I will figure out how to do that on Canvas. So I'll be right back. All right. See you in 5. Hi, everybody. So I figured out how to do the discussion. So let me share my screen and I'll show you what I did with them. All right. So on today's class, class 4, we've got goals, we've got homework. I walked upstairs and honestly, I'm winded, please. And right here is where I want you to put the assessment battery and IRI presentations, if you would be so kind. I know the PALS people, you're going to have to go back and find them. But it's a good idea. And then you're going to reply. You'll hit reply, say which one it is, and you can attach your document here or your PowerPoint and post, and then everyone can get to it. All right, does that make sense? Pretty straightforward, really. All right, good. And yada, yada, yada. Oh, and I'm going to do a little dog and pony show right now about phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics. And then we're going to go into the reading because I think it's particularly pertinent today as well. Just so happens. All right, so let's start. Oops. On phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics. They've occurred a lot in the last few days, or the last couple of classes. Phonological awareness is a good place to start. It is probably, it's more broad than phonemic awareness. So phonological awareness is specifically the understanding that words are constructed of sounds. So it doesn't have anything to do with text. So letter knowledge, nothing. It doesn't really even connect with books at all. A friend of mine says that she thinks of phonological awareness as the kind of sounds that you know when you close your eyes. So not the ones that connect with what you see. So it's the kind of things that you learn as a kid, learn as a little one, like a baby, learning that, learning the sounds. And then it's interesting as far as how you learn to talk. You learn to talk when you're babbling. Of course, you learn the sound. You're babbling with the sounds that your parents used around, or that you even heard in the womb. Kids actually come out of the womb babbling in their own way, and then you learn the words, and so you're able to put, to name things with words, even though they're kind of maybe not the exact words, like baba for bottle or something. But and then once you learn the whole word, then you can learn to break letters off of it, or to break sounds off of it. It's because it's not like you learn the individual letter sounds, I should say, the individual sounds, and build the words from that. You actually learn the whole words first, and later, years later, are able to start breaking off those sounds from it. It's an interesting process. So those are the sounds that you start to manipulate here. So, around the age, say, of 5, maybe 4, 3, you start recognizing rhyme. Maybe you're able to rhyme, or you're singing songs that have to do with rhyme, and you can figure out which ones are the rhyming words or something. You can break words into syllables or sounds. A lot of, clapping the syllables or something happens quite a bit. And then blending phonemes into syllables and words. So you can blend the k into cat, even if you don't know how it, any of the letters at that point. That would be phonemes. That would be phonological awareness, as is being able to identify beginning and ending sounds, or even to recognize kind of little words within the larger ones. So, I'm trying to even think of one my kid might have said recently. They just seem to be little models of this stuff lately. like son in, oh, I'm just looking at Watson. So son in Watson or something like that. A word length, we've talked about already, just the fact that the sound of the word is really, takes a long time to say as opposed to short. Phonemic awareness is a
Anna?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't mean to be rude, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but I have these exact notes from last week. Does anyone else have the exact same notes? Like, I think you showed us this PowerPoint last week, because I have all of this exactly written down.
Did I?
Yes, at least I have the notes from
wait,
class 3.
I'm going to stop sharing. Does anybody else remember this exact same thing? Did I do this? Oh my God,
I don't mean to like embarrass you, but I'm like, I heard this. I have these exact same notes.
Oh, that is hilarious. Well, no, it's funny because, I do have, how many times have I taught this in my world, and I was feeling like I was feeling deja vu, like, oh my God, I know I've told them this before. And thank you for saying that because, and I was saying, well, maybe it was my Monday class. I'm like, have I done this with my Monday? I can't even remember that. So thank you. Thank you very much. Well, then let's get on to the important stuff. So, no, I probably should be embarrassed, but I'm not. I feel a little bad, that I didn't write it down or anything, but thank you. Where is this? So what I'd like to do now is not share this. How do I get out of it now? Please let me out. Oh, there it was, end show. All right. So I was doing that to get to this anyway, so we get to it faster. So, no. This homework. Assumptions of levels. So we talked about this, and I think this echoed through what we did today in really important ways. But the assumptions of levels reading, I've always thought was a really important piece. And what are the strengths? What are the strengths of a teacher using leveling in a classroom? I mean, certainly there are some strengths here, and what are the uses? What are the weaknesses? And think critically about running records and all these other testing batteries. I'm making you all do running records, so I know that's a common piece. But even anything else that relies on a leveling system at your school site, how does it participate in the weaknesses? And then how do you need to use professional judgment in terms of that? So I know that you've been thinking about that already, but I'm going to send you into your small groups again randomly, and so that you can refresh a little bit, and then we'll come back, kind of share with each other, like, what did you say? Because you didn't necessarily have to write it down, but kind of try to figure out, what do you think on those 3 questions? And then we'll come back and we'll discuss it. Do a quick one, like 10 minutes. All righty. Hi, Sarah. Do you need anything?
Hey,
sorry. Our group didn't really, the questions were shown so quickly. What were our 3 questions that we're supposed to be talking about?
They're actually on Canvas in your
They're on
homework.
Canvas?
They're part of your homework from last week for this week.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. You guys are my quick group. Well, and you're also the group with just 2. So
Yeah, it's easier to talk when just 2 of you.
yeah. Dun dun dun.
I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, I knew. I saw your little square came in.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm just trying to multitask.
Oh yeah, definitely.
My kids aren't here, so.
That's one of the benefits of having of doing it this way, right? You know.
Right. So if you can't see me, it's because I'm listening, but I'm folding laundry or something.
Yeah. Oh, my laundry's right here.
Okay.
I totally get it. I think I will start bringing them back though, because good conversation to have. Hello, everybody. All right. So let's go through it. What are some of the strengths of the levelings? What'd you guys discuss?
We discussed in our group that sometimes strength of leveling can lend itself nicely to differentiation. If you can level out your kids and make groups, I mean, because then we kind of got into the groups, and there's a lot of unpacking you can do with ability groups too. But it lends itself to grouping kids and differentiating for kids. To be one of the strengths of leveling.
Yeah. And you're talking from a teacher's point of view here.
Yeah.
For sure, right? Yeah, absolutely.
And we were talking too about the growth. Like, it's super easy to track. Okay, they went up 1 level, 2 levels across, time spans. Like, see how far they have moved is like a super awesome feature too, because then you can see literally like how much they have learned.
Right. Progress monitoring, right? Excellent, excellent. Any other strengths? Those are huge, huge strengths. All right, let's go to weaknesses.
Something that we had also talked about was like identifying a student by a reading level gets really like broad, and something in my district that we're trying to change is our language around leveling. So seeing leveling as a skill set. So there's a set of reading skills that go with being a level E or being a level I reader, rather than just saying you're reading at a level G or a level H. So identifying specific skills rather than the broad level.
Wow, and that's a great thing your district is doing, because that could be a great tool not only for talking to the kids, but also, I mean, the teachers really should know,
Yes.
What that mean, what the different levels mean. Right, because go ahead. Was it Danielle? Who was it?
Well, we had kind of just talked about how leveling sometimes restricts kids, especially I've noticed in my classroom, from choosing the books that they actually want to or that they have an interest in. And it gets really hard where if I'm saying, okay, you need to make sure you stick around this lexile, and they can't find a book that they're remotely interested in that's around that. So
I see big nods. Lydia, do you want to?
Well, especially in the older grades. Like, I have kids from an M to a Z plus, and I have all those books in my room. They are leveled on the inside cover, but like, I'm not going to make you search. They're not in bins by level. They're by genre or topic. So I'm not going to make you search 1,000 books to go find the 10 books that are level M, because I'd much rather you be reading and enjoying it than finding your exact level. Like, that's what's frustrating to us, that like, it's a struggle in middle school.
And in any grade, I think. If those levels can be kind of like Hannah was saying, narrow. They certainly don't lend themselves to a variety of topics either.
Yeah, and going off of that, what it said, it mentioned in the article how they then can do bad on a test because they have no interest in the book. And I know I personally do a mix of books on their level, a little above, a little below, and then I also let them choose 3 interest books, because they just want to read like Elephant and Piggy books, and they might never get to that level. So I don't think in that sense that it's really like fostering a love for reading. It's kind of like a task at that point. And they know, even if I didn't have the bins labeled, they know, why do I have to pick out of this bin again and again and again, and this kid gets to pick out of this bin? Like, they know.
They know.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they do. And I love Elephant and Piggy, but I get it. Yeah. I would be that kid. I just want to read Elephant and Piggy. Why wouldn't I? But yeah.
Well, and most of the time, even though I don't even know what those books are, G maybe, they can still read them because they've read them so many times. So,
yeah. Well, and how many of you have noticed that that kids, well, you mentioned the testing, but I've noticed that kids can read books they're interested in better than the ones they're not interested in. I mean, sometimes if you let them read something that's very difficult and they've got that motivation, they can do it.
Yeah, I had my class last year was huge on Dr. Seuss, and even though those books are like 40 pages, they were reading them.
And they're hard.
Yeah.
And you've got kindergartners.
Yeah, but they enjoyed it so much that like once they got the pattern, they were reading them all day, every day.
Wow. So leveling doesn't encompass everything. Now, I heard a little bit about how districts and kind of classrooms are doing this. I want you, well, and let's think about, if people were coming to you and saying, well, they're at this level and this level, and they think, I think people think that reading teachers are level goddesses, like, we just think in levels, all the time. And it would be, I think it's important to help people understand that levels aren't the end all be all of reading. I think they're more of an aid to us than they are to anyone else. I'm sure I said that in this class, didn't I? Yeah. Well, very cool. Very cool. Is there anything that was discussed that we didn't bring in here? No? Oh, I saw a yawn. And I saw a chat pop up that said, I'm pooped. And I get it. It's only Wednesday, but it's been a long week. I don't know what's with this fall, but it's been a crazy start to the school year.
It's a full moon this week also. And the kids have been nuts.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. And that explains my husband too. Poor guy gets so much bad press in my classes. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to let you go. I think we've talked quite a bit about leveling and the observation survey and Marie Clay and running records. This has been a fantastic class. Thank you guys. And next time we will be bringing back the IRI groups, the QRI and the BRI, to talk. And if you guys would like to hang about and chat, I can give you guys little breakout rooms for your work. Other than that, we've got some readings for next time. And yes, Lydia.
Just a quick question. Those readings, they weren't linked in. So should we just search them on UWM Library?
I haven't linked them yet.
I was just looking tonight when I was on, and I'm sure I could find them online. I just figured I'd ask.
No, yeah, I've got them. I just have to, because I'm doing it every week for Canvas, I have to upload each and every one of them, and so I've got to do that yet. But I will also have guiding questions when I get there. Hopefully, anyway. No, I will definitely have guiding questions. I was going to give away some of what I'm thinking about it, but I won't. So, okay. Beth.
And we were discussing in our group, we don't need to formally write up an answer to the guiding questions, just kind of what we're jotting on, so we can discuss. Okay.
Right, exactly. It's really to guide your reading. And, you can take notes on it on the side or something, just so you have an idea of, why am I reading this again? Yeah, I don't expect anything formal. if you want to sit down with them and kind of look, feel free, write it up. Alrighty. Well, thank you all. Oh, yes, Tamika.
I just have a quick question about another class. If I could ask you once this one is over.
I will hang about.
Okay.
Absolutely. And Beth?
Do we have a research paper coming up in just like, I think that's in just 2 weeks? Could you talk about that a little bit?
You know what? Who is it that asked me to talk about this? And I keep forgetting. Okay. Yes, we do. Goodness gracious. Maybe it was you. Thank you for bringing it up though. And then, let's talk about that. It's called the tool paper, where you chose, remember how you signed up for an assessment tool, and where is it? No, I am going past it every time, I know. That's the assessment profile. Okay. This should be it. Yes. All right. So for whatever you signed up for, you should have 7 citations about research or theory. You won't necessarily find 7 citations on the research. Some of the research is very old and you can't find it anymore. ERIC, the Government Clearinghouse of ERIC, actually cleared out a whole bunch of really seminal research paper several years, about a decade ago. So you may not find everything, but find 7 citations on that, at least that reference it, or theory connected to your tool. And basically, you're going to create a paper that describes what you found, what they say, what you found. And these are the 3 areas, the 3 categories, the 3 sections of your paper. You're going to first describe the tool. How do you do it in a classroom? Like, you're really, this is almost an advertisement for your peers here. So they get to choose an assessment to do on their, you guys have 3 bonus assessments to do. If they wanted to choose yours, you'd need to describe it well enough so that they could. And give maybe some sample forms. And a great way to do it actually is to, have a rich, clear, and hopefully I said interactive or real life example. So you could show a video of somebody doing it. You could give your audience here the tools and have us do it, and then talk about it. You could, there are a variety of ways you can do it. You can show samples, but somehow, describe the tools used, and then talk about its research base, how effective it's supposed to be, and in what context. Sometimes things are used in contexts that aren't appropriate for it. So, explain what it's supposed to be used for and how, and then talk about its strengths and strengths and weaknesses for classroom and intervention use here. As a teacher, an intervention teacher, that could be one-on-one, or as a classroom teacher, what are its strengths and weaknesses. So those are the 3 categories of your paper, and they will probably be the same 3 categories of your presentation, right? And you'll just go from there. Does that make sense? It should be kind of a cut and paste, pretty clear, straight on.
Okay, this may be a dumb question, but I have never heard of the ERIC database at the library.
Okay. No, it's probably not a dumb question, but I those are the kind of things I just say sometimes, and then I'm like, why do you? Okay, so here's your homepage. Go to the library section. because Eric actually used to be a database that you used to have to go to the resources section of the library. And you don't have to anymore. So you need, where is it? Databases right here. You're going to go to E. And there are actually two Eric ones. You're going to want this one. The EBSCO is the better one to use. And you can go in there, and it's going to ask you, you know, are you really a student or a teacher at UWM? And you'll say yes. And then you can type in, you know, close reading assessment, for example. And it'll come up with articles that include those words. So and Eric is where most of the reading journals are. That's a good database for us. So that, and once you find some good articles, I also recommend you mine their bibliographies, because if you get an article that's like right on, they've probably stood on the shoulders of giants, you know, and they, in their bibliographies and in their citations, you'll see kind of some of the works that that you'll want to reference, you know, maybe the seminal articles, the foundational pieces there as well. So you kind of follow the bibliographies. That's a good way to do it. So does that help? All right. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Oh my goodness. All right. Now, all right, so let's officially end class now. I'll create breakout rooms for anybody that wants them.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask a quick question. So this probably does not pertain to most of you. For my assessment that you were just talking about, I have retelling. Retelling is used in a lot of other assessments. So do I talk about assessments it's used in? How should I do that?
Really, you only have to talk about retelling, just in a narrow way. So just talk about retelling, where it comes from. Yes, it's used in a lot of these things, and you can make, I mean, that's like a sentence. You might say, retelling probably happen, you know, you've all probably done retelling in one form or another, you know, because it's really common. But, you know, really you're going to focus in on retelling.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Can I ask my quick question?
Please.
For the fieldwork class, should I call you to set up a meeting with the person that's going to be my administrator?
You don't have to. Yeah, well, we'll meet on Zoom. Just send me some times and days that would be good for you as in email, and I'm sure one of them will work. Okay, because we could even meet while I'm at work. Yeah, if that's okay. Yeah, that's the way a lot of people do it. Okay, and then should I just give you a call anyway to just find out what exactly her role is going to be? Well, we can meet ahead of time and do that. So, I mean, we could do that in a little bit if you want to. Oh, okay. If you don't mind hanging out for a little bit, and I'll wait. All righty. Okay. All right. Is there, okay, so class is done. So thank you, everybody, and bye-bye. Anybody who wants a room, raise your hand. Okay, is it the BRI and the QRI people? Shall I just put that up there and you guys can tell me which one you're in? Or
BRI is pretty much good. Ash and I have been emailing a lot, so BRI, we're good to go. It's probably just the QRI people. Gotcha. Okay.
The three of us that want to run.
All right, so I'm going to do this manually. All right. So yell out your name. Is it just Erin, Danielle, and Anna? Okay. Because Tamika, you're here for me. So, okay. All righty. Go for it. All right. So Tamika, 700.
Yes.
What is it? How does it happen? Okay. Let me go to the D2L page because I still have it on D2L. Oops. That's my email.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, wait. All right. All right. So 700. Oh, here it is. Okay, so here's the 700 interview questions, but we don't really need that right now. Let's pull up the basic overview, which is here. Oops, I didn't mean to stop share. I meant to enable editing so that it would go away. Go away. All right. So there are basically 4 pieces, and only 3 of them will involve your administrator. So the first one, it's a short, like 20 question interview, I think. So it's not, have an hour. You might not, it depends on how much they talk.
Well, I meet with her like pretty regularly, so.
Oh, great.
Anyway, we've been meeting pretty regularly, so.
Oh, well, see, this is going to be, probably nothing extra anyway. So you're going to try to observe, is it her, you said?
Yes.
You're going to probably observe her for a class period. So if you've got a planning period or something, you can just kind of follow around and find, as long as, no privacy issues are involved, just to find out kind of the pacing of her day. And it's different than a teacher. So you're trying to get your head around that.
Right.
And then you're going to check in every 2 weeks just to find out, and you may be meaning more than that, but just to find out specifically like what's on your mind, what are your goals this week, or what are the stresses, what are the things that they think about. And then you'll also want to do kind of get connected with somebody who needs support in reading. So thinking about a first year teacher or a content area teacher that wants to bring reading, bring literacy support into their instruction in some ways. So that, and I kind of leave that to you and the person to try to be successful in that, because I don't want to say you will meet every week and then the person's like, do we really have to read every week? I'm all right.
Right.
So you kind of negotiate that with the person, but basically getting your coaching legs on.
Okay.
So it's only the first 3 that really would involve your administrator.
Okay. So I'm supposed to observe her first?
No. Actually, the triad meeting is probably first. So that's usually the place where I try to just say, okay, does everybody know what's going on? All right. Thank you so much for spending your time and things like that. And then it's only 15 minutes and, or 10 even. It's really short. And then you'd probably interview, start checking in every couple of weeks and getting that peer support. The administrator can help sometimes to connect you with somebody for peer support. If you don't have, maybe you do. And then figure out when you're going to shadow, whatever works. And then at the very end, we'll have the last triad meeting.
Okay. So the person I have in mind is my supervisor, and she's the diagnostic teacher.
Oh.
Also a diagnostic teacher also for the whole organization.
Wow.
So I would have her meet with you, and then I would observe her, or do I interview her, or?
Interview her. Yeah. So she'd be your co-op, your diagnostician. That's a wow. That's a weighty title. But yeah. So first, let's get together on a quick triad and just make sure everybody's signing off, and then I would schedule an interview with her, and and start the every 2 weeks and figure out. Yeah. You've got there's a lot of wiggle room here for getting in there. So.
Well, like I said, we meet. She's my supervisor, my direct supervisor. So we meet we've been meeting about every 2 or 3 weeks, every 2 or 3 times a month.
Gotcha.
So pretty regularly.
Wow.
So,
but you've probably been talking more about you, and now you're going to talk to her too.
Yes, true. Yes. And then then the idea is for me to, like you said, get connected with somebody who needs support.
Yeah.
Reading.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then I'll just support that person and follow up with her with the meetings.
Exactly. You've got this nice check-in, and it's a great opportunity, I think, especially to kind of get somebody to know that you're getting this kind of extra certification. It's kind of a networking tool in some ways, so that you get you start to have a different kind of relationship with administrators.
Well, she coaches me already because I'm a special ed assistant, so she's also the special ed teacher, and so she coaches me on like ABA and just different things to use with the children. So I had a question about that. I was just wondering if I forget what I have in mind, but I'm supposed to be implementing and working on like the reading aspect, right?
Right. This is specifically about reading.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So what about like things that they use already? I'm just trying to figure out how I can implement what I'm doing already, because I work with the teachers throughout the program. In the K-5 program, I go from room to room and I work with the children who have IEPs. So I'm just trying to figure out how I can, if I can somehow utilize,
Well, that seems, you're already working with the students, but in this case, you'd be working with a teacher.
Oh, okay.
So getting maybe hooked up with one of the teachers and this would be a great opportunity, actually, if you're already working with them in terms of special ed, to really focus in on the reading and to get a teacher to support the reading piece that you're doing might be really powerful.
Okay. Would you like, does it have to be one teacher, or could it be, like a grade level?
You could
do that. Two K-5 classrooms, so
sure.
It depends on how receptive they are.
Right, so. Right. You feel it out. That would be fine. It's ambitious.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to go that far.
Okay. Okay. And then I have another class with you, the 799 class.
Yes, let's do that one. All right. All right. The content area reading for the reading specialist. And this is basically everything. I really just kind of lay it out. You're going to click here, read that.
Right.
And really you're going to be looking, it's not that far from our tool paper, actually, where you're going through and doing a research project with 7 readings on something, right?
Okay,
but
right.
In this case, you're going to do an annotated bibliography of it for a little, and then at the end, you're going to do a paper. And the discussions are going to lead you through it. So some people, it looks like some people have started. So they've started reading the first, this is the first reading. There's part one and part two. So they've started commenting on it. Wow. Oh, hey, 9 posts, 6 threads, 6 people. I've got like 12 of you guys. There's quite a few of you. So about half of this is done about, the first thing, but, and you'll just work your way down here.
Okay.
Until you get to the final versions at the very, very bottom.
Okay.
The final presentation paper or the PD or paper. You can create, after you do the research, you can create a PD if that is relevant. Some people, already want to do the PD. You may be in that situation where you want to create a PD that you will do, and that would be more useful than a paper. And if that's the case, you have that option.
A PD is?
Professional development. So
okay, that's it.
Yeah, it's some kind of presentation or professional with your.
So the idea is that we're reading these different articles, and this is our research, and then we have a final paper.
Right. Essentially, yes.
Okay. This one was pretty easy.
Yeah, this one's very straightforward. Yeah. It's only 1 credit. That's why.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for your time and explaining those things to me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And I'll look for your email.
Okay. Will do.
All right. Take care.
You too.